Hey YouTube, it's your girl Dr. J, and I thought I would come and do a quick video. It's not going to be quick, but do a video on the pros and cons of having a stream-based education. You guys know that STREAM is the acronym that I made up. I just basically expanded the STEM acronym to STREAM, which stands for Science, Technology, Reading, Engineering, Art, and Math. And the reason why I added reading in there is because all three of my kids are dyslexic. And so reading, writing, spelling is just going to be a constant part of our homeschooling just because they can't fall behind in those areas, and we'll be remediating those for a long time to come. I mean, I'm dyslexic and I'm still working on my spelling. So, but I know that I've talked to you guys about the development of a stream-based homeschool, and a lot of people said that they had an interest in it, but I wanted to really start out with talking about some of the pros and cons of having a stream-based education, because I think that was really something that I had to do. My husband and I both had to say, do we really want to do this, and what does that mean for us and in this philosophy? And as we went through the pros and cons, we were able to make a full conscious decision to do this with our kids' education. The first thing I'm going to start with is the pros of having a stream-based education. I think the biggest pro is that because our kids are interested in these areas, we're able to really allow them to go deep and go wide in all of these areas so that they really find out what they really want to do with their lives, and they have a lot of exposure to some really fun and interesting things along the way as they advance through their education. You guys know I'm a professor. I've been teaching part-time at the collegiate level for 16 years, and every semester I see students that change majors, and the reason why they change majors is because they read about a major, or somebody said, oh, you'd make a really good engineer, and so they said, okay, I want to go into engineering. Then you get to college and it's like, okay, you want to be an engineer. Do you want to be an electrical engineer, an environmental engineer, a mechanical engineer, a civil engineer, aeronautical engineer, an aerospace engineer? And then they had no idea that there were 20 different types of engineering that they could go into, or they were never exposed to some things. And so when you have a stream-based education, if your children are really interested in these areas, once they're at the end of their K-12 education, they will know exactly what they want to do and what they don't want to do. They will have exposure to what they don't like as well. And so they get to make very meaningful decisions. The other benefit of a stream-based education is because these areas are in demand. And what that means is, today, organizations, they don't just want to know what you know. They want to know what you can do. And when you have a stream-based education, your child will be doing a lot. For instance, my oldest, he has been doing a lot in solar design. And it started with, saying, okay, can he make a better, solar pizza box oven? Little scouts, in scouts, everybody's done it, or 4-H or anything like that. You make the pizza box oven. And so he said, well, can I make this something that's actually useful to people? There are people in countries who, poor families are spending a significant amount of their money on fuel costs for cooking food. And so he said, can I make this technology that's going to be extremely low cost that will allow people that will make a solar oven a viable source of way to heat food for families. And so he did this really elaborate study, and he did great, and that moved him to looking at solar for desalination projects, and that moved to some other things. So even at 8 years old, he's got this extensive experience in this area, and he's getting feedback from professionals all over who are like, oh, well, have you thought about this, and have you thought about that, and oh, that's great. So it's not just, oh, I know about solar science. It's he gets to do it. My twins, even though they're only 6, they've been able to do a lot of mechanical engineering projects and get feedback from professionals in the area of the field, and see how things work, and it's not just knowing, it's doing. And so that is one big advantage to a stream-based education. Your child, won't just have a resume and a portfolio of things that they know. They will be able to talk about what they've done. Another big benefit of stream is that sometimes in traditional approaches to education, we get caught up in information and children knowing stuff. My child knows the history of the world. My child knows Shakespeare. My child knows, A, B, and C. My child, knows the languages spoken in every country. With a stream-based education, it's not just about knowledge. It's about what have you done to expand the knowledge of others. And so while knowledge is important, stream is more about creativity and children taking what they know and creating something new or doing something different, solving real problems, using critical thinking skills to change outcomes. So it's not about consuming knowledge for the purpose of knowing. It's about consuming knowledge for the purpose of creating, improving, expanding. And so that's one thing I love about it. It's all about creativity. It's all about problem solving. It's all about critical thinking, and that is just an area that my kids really thrive in. And I love that that's the focus of what we do. We learn to do. We learn to expand and to create. They're about what can I make that's never been made before. What problem can I solve that no one's been able to solve before? What formula can I come up with that no one's been able to come up with before? And that's the focus of our education. It's not about, knowing what everybody else knows. It's knowing something that nobody else has figured out yet. And that is probably the biggest advantage to me is that our focus is really on creating and doing and expanding. And so those I think are the biggest advantages to a stream-based education. Now for the other side, the disadvantages, because there are some big disadvantages. The first disadvantage is that you don't get an opportunity to go online and purchase a curriculum. Like, you're not going to find a stream-based curriculum. Well, mainly because I made up the acronym. But you won't even find a STEM-based homeschool curriculum. So if you're one where you're like, okay, I just want to go in and give me K-12 or give me Abeka or give me Bob Jones, and I'm going to follow Anglo Side, or I'm going to follow Charlotte Mason. Not going to happen with stream. You can't do it. You have to be confident in your ability to create a plan for your child. And so if it's not something that you have confidence in or time to do, then it's not going to work, because you may find lesson plans here or there, but it's going to be you who's putting things together and making it work and making it have the right fit for your child. So that's con number one. Con number two is akin to con number one, and that is you will have to create the plan that other people see for what you did, because you're not going to be able to have a side-by-side transcript to someone else. You'll have to be able to really explain your child's transcript, and they'll have to be able to explain their transcript very well to other people, because it is something that's new. And when you talk about, what did you do for history? Well, we did the history of technology. But when did you learn about Genghis Khan? When did you learn about Alexander the Great? What do you know about the Roman Empire? And it's not that your child doesn't know those things, but they may know those things from a different lens than what most children in the United States or other countries, what the lens that they learned it through. So you really have to be comfortable with your child, having a different view and having a different lens by which they view things, and your transcript reading very differently than other children, even other homeschoolers. And number 3 is that it has to be a long-term commitment, because especially as your child goes up in grade, their transcript diverges even more from the traditional. So it's going to be close to impossible for your child to do a smooth transition into a traditional school setting. So, my oldest, he's going into 4th grade. I'm not going to be able to say, okay, 6th grade, okay, I'll just send you to traditional school for 6th grade. No, because his route is going to be so different than the traditional 6th grade route that it would be really hard to just kind of bridge that and go back. So when you commit to stream, it's going to be a commitment that you really have to follow through. You have to really think about, do you want to do this? Because you don't get an easy change later. And that's something that, you really have to think about. Do you want to do it this way? So that's another, I think, really big con, another big con, and I'm really going to try to use the right words for this, because I think it can come out sounding not how I want it to sound. But you have to know these areas. Okay. For instance, my oldest he's 8, and he will be starting algebra within the next 2 years. So he'll, be 9, about 10 when he starts algebra. One of my twins, my daughter, she's going to be starting algebra in about 2 years. So she will be 8, maybe 9 when she starts algebra. Okay. Right now, they're all on track to, probably graduate with, about age 16, 17. So let's say my daughter graduates at 17 and she starts algebra at 9. We got 8 years of math that going to be beyond algebra. Okay. So you have to be comfortable with, your child, with managing your child's education in these higher level courses. I'm not trying to say that a parent that's not strong in math won't be able to find the right resources so that their child can go into calculus. What I'm saying is, it's very different for a child to do algebra from the teaching company versus Becca versus, Life of Fred versus the art of problem solving. Okay. And so you will really have to be comfortable in how you navigate that. Now, I'm very comfortable with my children going this route, and math being such an integral part of our homeschool, because my husband has multiple degrees in math. My father-in-law, who's very supportive of our homeschooling, was a mathematician for our space program, and so that's something that it's not a big deal to us. But if you are one where you're not strong in math and you don't have a lot of resources available, that's, a lot of human resources available that's going to be able to help your child through, then that's going to be a challenge for you. Or if you say, oh, okay, we had a stream-based education and math was an integral part of our homeschool, and you guys got through trig, and it's like, well, did you do number theory? Did you do, this, that, and you didn't hit those kind of, sub areas that are expected with a math focus, then that's going to hurt the legitimacy of having a stream-based education. The same with, engineering. Okay, doing some fun engineering projects is very different than having an engineering focus to your homeschool. Again, my husband is an engineer, so that's not a big deal for us. We're in an engineer-heavy area. So that's something that we're very comfortable with. But if you are not comfortable with, biomechanical engineering, and, you're gonna have to work really hard to be able to find opportunities for your child to really get into this area. Space science. Okay, it's one thing for your child to okay, here's the planets, we know the planets. That's traditional study of space science. But if your child is not at some point going to be comfortable having conversations with people as to the theoretical ramifications of Glial 667cc and life on other planets, whether it be similar or different from life here on Earth, that's going to be an issue. So you really have to be comfortable with STREAM as your children are in learning about STREAM. And so that's, hear my heart, you can teach science without being a scientist. Absolutely. Okay, you don't have to be a scientist to teach your children science. Having a science focus for your homeschool, though, is a different animal. A lot of times you will find in science and technology based traditional schools, they will tell you the number of their staff that have masters and PhDs in the areas that they teach. That is what gives legitimacy to the program. That is what separates science taught at a science center, a science-based high school, from science taught at a traditional high school. And so that's going to be the same thing in a homeschool setting. Science taught in a traditional homeschool is going to be a very different animal than science taught in a science-based homeschool. So hope that makes sense. And hope you hear my heart. Okay. Don't need a degree to be a homeschooler. You do not need a degree to be a homeschooler. You do not need a degree in math for your children to do amazing in math. It's however far they want to go. You can do this. I am not at all saying that I think that you have to have additional certification. That is not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that when it comes to it being your focus, and a lot of times when it is your focus, you rotate through levels of math much faster, and so your child is going to be much younger when an 8-year-old doing algebra is very different, and they need a different level of support than a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old doing algebra. That is the difference. A 10-year-old doing geometry or calculus is very different than a 15 or 16-year-old doing geometry and calculus. So that is where the different need for comfort with these subjects comes into play. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Now, last con I'm going to talk about, cost. You can find low cost and free lesson plans that are engineering based, like the Boston Museum of Science. Amazing materials in engineering. But okay, robotics, you can't do robotics for cheap. It's just not gonna happen. Mindstorms, which is kind of the area when it comes to, especially learning robotics at a young age. Mindstorms, they're expensive. Having access to different technology. Now technology doesn't mean computers. I mean, spoons are technology, shovels are technology. So it doesn't have to be like high tech, but just having access to the stuff that makes hands-on worthwhile, that there's costs associated with that. I know my youngest son, the other half of the twins, he was making a periscope. He wanted to make his own periscope because he built this vehicle that he would ride in, and he wanted it to have a periscope. And so having things available so that he could discover for himself how to create the periscope, okay, we had to have prisms for him to test. We had to have telescope lenses for him to test. We had to have all this other kind of stuff. Okay, that's not free, and and just, you have to have things available for the child to work with and discover on their own. So there are costs associated with that. For space science, you want to have, there's a difference between a good telescope and a not good telescope. And then when it comes to your child, starting to really get into space science, where they start to build their own telescopes, okay, there's a difference between building a kit telescope and building your own telescope. And so, as your child advances through these areas and you start to really look at, especially as they get into the higher levels, and to say that you did chemistry, lots of homeschoolers do chemistry, lots. Okay. But when you go and say, okay, this, I have, we had a science-based homeschool and they talk about chemistry lab and you didn't have a lab, that starts to interfere with the legitimacy of the transcript. If your child, goes into these areas and they're sitting down for a board interview and they've not had lots of hands-on experience and in-depth in this area, that's where the cost comes in. You can do science low cost. Yes, you can. You can do technology low cost. Absolutely. You can do engineering low cost. Absolutely. But as you go into depth and breadth, the cost expands a lot. So, and I have to be honest with that, because it can be kind of take your breath away when you start going, this costs what? This circuit costs what? Yeah. So, just wanted to put this out there so that, you guys kind of know the big pros and cons to having these things. Another thing that I want to say though is that your child can do STEM and STEAM without that being the focus of your homeschool. So what I'm going to be talking about is this is the focus of our homeschool, but I'm definitely going to, every time I find something low cost, guys, I'm going to do videos on it. Every time I find something free, I'm going to do videos on it, because I think that every homeschooler needs to have some components of STEAM as a part of their homeschool. Absolutely. It's just that it doesn't have to be the whole focus of their homeschool. So I don't care if you're doing Montessori, Charlotte Mason, Waldorf, I don't care what you're doing. Your child needs to have exposure to technology and engineering. Most people do science and math, but your child, should have exposure to some of those things. Your child should still be doing art, all the way through high school. So I'm going to, definitely make sure that I inform, far and wide on, how you can do these things, small scale and have little things here and there. But I wanted to talk about, if this is going to be what your homeschool is all about, wanted to give you kind of both sides of that. So hope this helps. This is Dr. J, and I'm out. Bye-bye.